Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I'm excited to be in conversation with the amazing Whitney Parnell. I'm Andrew Plumley, he, him pronouns. I'm the managing director at Equity in the Center, and I'm going to be in conversation with the amazing Whitney Parnell, the executive director of Service Never Sleeps, who just dropped an amazing report entitled, What Does It Mean to Be Black-Led? The next 25 minutes or so, I think will be great. I'm really interested to hear more from Whitney and her work and her report. I'm excited to say to everyone now that if you want to hear a little bit more about the report, Whitney's work, we'll be hosting, Equity in the Center will be hosting, in partnership with Service Never Sleeps, a training on October 30th, where much more of this conversation will be covered. But I'm really excited to at least get some of this started today, this afternoon. But before we do all of that, I want to hand it off to Whitney to introduce herself a little bit as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So great to be with you all today. My name is Whitney Parnell. My pronouns are she, her. I am the founder and CEO of Service Never Sleeps. I like to describe us as a Black-led racial justice allyship organization. So try saying that 10 times over. And I like to say that we serve as a resource for justice-minded individuals by providing them with knowledge and tools to advance equity in their spheres of influence. We're probably most known for our allyship training, which we do solely through a racial justice lens that helps people recognize, where do you have privilege? That's where you should be an ally, and this is how. And we're just really excited about this new season that we're in with the Black-led Project, which I'm really looking forward to discussing with you today. And I just have to say, can't be a more special place to discuss. Equity in the Center is just such an amazing partner in the work with us. And Andrew, you're just such a dear friend of mine in this work. And so this is just a really special moment to be had right now.
Thanks, Whitney. And I feel the same way. It's such a pleasure to be on with you. We go way back, and so really happy to be able to do this with you.
Yay.
Yeah. So let's hop into this. I know we don't have that much time, and so I think what would be super helpful is just to get everyone on the same page and aligned with respect to kind of context. So can you share, Whitney, just a little bit about what this report is, how it came to be, and why it's important now?
Yeah, absolutely. So some context is that this month actually marks our 9-year anniversary. We are still here. And we've, like I said, thank you. We've built our brand around our allyship training that is done specifically through a racial justice lens that centers pro-Blackness, dismantling anti-Blackness, because we understand you've got to center that to work toward everybody's liberation. And so during the 2020 uprising, Black Lives Matter uprising, a lot of foundations were pledging to fund Black-led organizations. And Service Never Sleeps applied to a bunch of that funding and got none of it. Fantastic organizations got funding, but what was getting us was the feedback, which was that, one, we didn't have the numbers to qualify as Black-led. Mind you, I'm the founder and CEO. I am a Black woman. Our co-founder and COO, Samson, is a Black man. Our board was a majority Black. And so we were like, what? And then the second thing was that they said that our work didn't support Black people, our mission, because it wasn't the paternalistic way that the only way to serve Black people is to do direct service, not train people to unlearn their anti-Blackness. So we were just processing all of that, just like, first of all, this isn't true. And secondly, that's not even the fullness of what being Black-led means. It's a vibe. It's a whole journey to showing up as authentic self in leadership and how that's infused into the organizational culture and by effect, the outputs that happen from there. So we were just processing all of this, and I was on a walk, and I called Samson, our COO, who knows to answer that phone for whatever's on the other end. And I was just like, I'm done having all these places. You know what it's like. I was like, I'm done having all these places try to tell us what we aren't. And so we're going to take our power back and talk to only Black people. around this question of what it means to be Black led, where we're going to talk to Black executive directors, Black deputy directors, also Black race equity consultants and officers around this question. And so that's what, as a mighty team of two, we did over the course of over 2 years to finally produce this report, and also a training that will accompany it that hopefully folks will come to on October 30th from 12 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll just say, to answer your other questions there, that one, this is always important. It's always been important. And I think the particulars of this season are that we're seeing that some of the other effects of the Black Lives Matter uprising is that a lot more Black people were put into leadership. And we witnessed the power that came from that, and also the immense challenges that Black leaders faced in that season. And so this report speaks to all of that. And then I also love that this report spotlights all of the great things that Black leadership can bring. Throughout my life, and especially the almost decade of running SNS, I can't tell you how I was almost solely directed toward resources by white men about good leadership. And so I just love that this is a spotlight on the dopeness that Black people bring as leaders based on all that we have been through, also our amazing culture, and that people can really study this as a liberatory and transformational way of leading, and also organizational equity. And people of all identities can really benefit from this. So that's a bit of the context.
I love that. I love that. And, of course, I'm sorry that you didn't get any of that funding, but I think many of us know that all too well. So I'm glad that you put this report out, a report that's for us and for everybody. But I think it's important to put out. And I'll also mention that obviously both Carrie Suarez, President and CEO of Equity in the Center, and I were a part of the interviews that you did to get to this report. And I'll first just say thank you for including us in that. I thought it was an incredibly well done process, but also some of the questions that you were asking also helped Equity in the Center, Kay, me, process a little bit about like what it is to be Black led, what are the differences, what are the importances, the importance of it, and really put into context for us too. I mean, we obviously are also a Black led organization, and have become our own 501c3 with its founders being all Black, 2 Black women and 1 Black man, which is me. And so those conversations really helped kind of support our own thinking about what it means to be pro-Black, pro-Indigenous in this space and in this sector. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about some of the key takeaways of the report. I remember what I put into the interview process, but what are some of the key takeaways? What are the things that you want to drop in terms of knowledge from the report itself?
Yeah, thanks for that. And both of your input was so phenomenal. And I can even relate, as the researcher, how much interviewing folks helped me process what was happening in the organization that I was running myself, right? Even as a leader, even as a DEI, a race equity practitioner, this research was so helpful in being like, oh, it's not just me. And oh, everybody's gaslighting like I'm the problem here, when really there's systemic stuff happening here. And oh, we're stretching so hard because wait, so it's not that we aren't worthy of funding. It's that we've got a systemic issue that Black-led orgs don't get funding, right? So I can definitely relate to the processing process that happened during the research. And to some of those points, so many amazing things. I'll tell people, download that report as a resource that you can have to just learn so much and go so deep. But some standout points, one, are this people first priority, and that Black-led organizations led by Black people, it's really from a position of empathy, from Black people not always being cared about or thought about, and like really centering people's care and well-being at their heart of their work, both internally and externally. So seeing that through the policies, seeing that through this organizational culture of care and relationship and wellness and joy. So this people first priority in terms of internal culture really shined through, as well as how that extended into the mission and the work through like proximity to the community that the mission was supporting, and actually centering the voices of those that they were trying to support. So this notion of this people first posture was a major standout. I'd say another big standout is the challenges. We tried to be very intentional about this report holding the both and all of all the things, including inspirational things, but also naming that it is hard for Black leaders. It is very, very difficult. And that while some can say that any executive director goes through some of these challenges, what I would offer is the data shows systemically that then Black people deal with it to a compounded effect. And then some things were just unique to Black-led orgs and Black leaders, period. A lot of it being the disrespect and the mistreatment that came not just externally from funders and supporters, but also internally from boards and staff members. And there's so many details of that in the report, but I'll just say that a lot of that has to do with an implicit rejection of their leadership. Sometimes a rejection of accountability as well from all identities. And then another big part of the challenges was just the lack of funding, as I spoke to earlier. And I remember somebody said a quote about how, look, the fact of the matter is people just don't trust Black people with money. And we have to go there and name what the implicit aspects are for why Black-led orgs don't get that money. And that's a big part of it. But also just speaking to how the lack of funding forces Black-led orgs and Black leaders to have to stretch themselves so far and to not be able to live into their dreams for all the equitable policies that they would do. And so just what funding would offer in terms of spaciousness to be able to do a reasonable amount of work as an organization, and to be able to invest in their people as much as they dream to be able to do. And then the last big point that I'll just highlight right now is that how everybody benefits from Black-led organizations. Like the data shows that systemically, centering Black people gives us the infrastructure to work toward everybody's liberation. And so the same applies with organizations, not just with their missions, which is part of it, but also with their organizational cultures. It was great to check mark some of the stuff that we were doing, but to also learn from what others were doing in terms of their org culture, bringing music, bringing joy, bringing food, so many things that talking about the culture. It just makes it a really good time, and not just for Black people, but for everybody who's a part of that, because all this people first stuff, all these benefits into people, all this desire for everybody to bring their authentic selves to co-create culture, everybody gains from that. And so it was just awesome that a big takeaway is, look, everybody's going to benefit from Black-led organizations. So support us, be alongside us, and like witness us be great.
I love it. I love it. And I really appreciate what you said. And a couple of things. We've been seeing a bunch of challenges about the lack of funding. We've been seeing a lot of challenges about particularly Black women leaders not getting the support that they need from the sector at large, but also internal staff, boards, et cetera. And we talked about this in the interview process about how we could support particularly Black women leaders in the sector, and when we were having those conversations and between you, me, and Chaos, we were thinking about how Black men specifically can support Black women and Black-led organizations. And obviously, you're the leader of Service Never Sleeps. Kay is the leader of Equity in the Center. And I think for me, what this report really highlighted for me is that as a Black man, I'm a part of a Black-led organization, and I still have, just because I'm Black doesn't let me off the hook for supporting Black leadership. And I feel like some of the challenges that you presented within the report, Black men specifically, and I'll just bring up the Black men into this, have real responsibility and obligation to support, particularly Black women leaders in the sector. And I feel like one of the things that we can do better is to amplify, I think, the intersectionality of Black women. Obviously, Black women are navigating multiple layers of marginalization with race and gender, et cetera. And I think supporting Black women leaders um, can I think support in addressing those intersectional challenges that both Black women face, but folks that aren't Black women that aren't leaders in organizations. And I think Black men can help by advocating for kind of equitable opportunities that center and uplift Black women, specifically Black women voices and Black women leadership. You mentioned earlier too, I think it's important for Black men who are supporting Black women leaders to promote that holistic leadership that you were talking about, which is really thinking about how Black women bring their lived experience into organizations that foster empathy, that foster those innovative solutions, that people first orientation that you were talking about. I mean, that leadership style is needed everywhere within the sector and more broadly. It's kind of rooted in community, it's rooted in care. And again, it would benefit not just Black communities, but all communities. And I think Black men can be in support of that. And I think another thing that we were thinking about when we were in that interview process and while I was reading the report was kind of Black men's need to, I think, dismantle the patriarchy and obviously dismantle it both kind of within our own psyche, but also within kind of the work environment. And I think Black men can contribute by challenging those oppressive structures and kind of advocate for more inclusive pro-black women leadership practices that you all are just bringing to the table just by showing up. And I think that would recognize, I think, Black women specifically in the sector right now when we really, really need it.
I really appreciate you saying all the things and being the one to say it as a Black man, because one thing that I realized as a Black woman, right, is that it takes someone else in a position of privilege or a separate resource to say the thing, even if I just said it, right? And I think my response to that is check mark, check mark, check mark, and layered in that Kieran actually gave this amazing quote about these three tropes of being a Black woman leader that she and I actually co-wrote an article about called "We Specialize in the Wholly Impossible." I invite folks to look that up, and
Great
talked
article.
about the notion that, thank you, that as Black women leaders, we're seen as angry, quite frankly, when we just lead, right? When we hold people accountable, when we give instruction, when we make decisions, that we're seen as the mammies who are supposed to take care of everyone, just this complete posture of extraction where we give and pour into with no reciprocation, and to be the magical superwoman who are supposed to like save the day, do all the things, and catch all the things. And so I think one thing that's important for us all to bear in mind is that what does that mean? What does that mean for someone's individual identities within an organization where this is the air that all of us breathe? And I always say that identity can impact how we breathe in those systems, but we are all a part of these systems. That's why it's not, look, it's not just white people who may have challenges following Black women, but other Indigenous people of color and other Black people, including other Black women and femmes, right? Because there's the systematization that happens within. And so one thing that people need to recognize is that nobody's exempt from that, right? Nobody's exempt. And I even have to think about if I were working under a Black woman, how would I be breathing in that air as well, right? And so I think one is just from the humility of recognizing that this is the air we're all breathing. How do we do that constant work to show up in the best possible place? I'll also say that what's so interesting is that I'm in this position of highest positional power at the institution, but in many ways, the most powerless I've ever been, right? Because I'm still living at the intersection of being a Black woman. And furthermore, it's almost like being in power is not how it's supposed to be systemically. And so it's rejected and pushed up against, right? And so it's interesting to see the gaslighting that happens around in just showing up as a leader, how that is a problem, when it's really the problem is the fact that I'm the leader, right? And that's a whole lot of work for people to have to do. But what I'll say is there's so much power from a board and a number two role that can provide support there. Like the board's role at a Black-led organization certainly is to make sure the org is healthy, certainly to hold the leader accountable, but to provide a lot of that support, particularly for Black women. And I can personally attest to the value of having a partner in the work in a number two role who can help absorb some of that, but also particularly also being a Black man, right? Because he is able to use his privilege to say the thing that I cannot, and to provide a form of protection and support to me, just given that gender dynamic. So I'll say nobody's exempt from this. And how in this allyship consideration, right, can people use their privilege when they're within a Black woman-led organization to provide that support and allyship to a Black woman, which Samson does so wonderfully to me and demonstrates an example of being possible. And I'll just close by saying, again, Erica Hines put out a fantastic research paper called Black Women Thriving, and it's all about how Black women can thrive at work, and emphasizing that when Black women thrive at work, everybody will thrive. And the same should apply to Black women leadership, that like the infrastructure is not in place for Black women to succeed as leaders, and any quote unquote success is through resilience and doing a whole lot more work. So we're definitely not dispositioned to thrive. And that just shouldn't be okay for folks. It just shouldn't. And so we shouldn't have to choose between martyrdom as leaders or leaving the work altogether for our health. We deserve to rightfully lead in our power, and everyone else benefits from that innovation, that care, that excellence that we bring. And it just demonstrates how that centering allows us all to thrive. And I'll just close celebrating equity in the center as well, because I learned so much from you all regularly. And for all that we talk about in our report as the power and possibility of Black-led organizations, it's awesome to see how it's happening. It's humbling to be reminded that there are always ways that all of us can grow and be better. And this has been a resource for me to do that. But I always say all of this that we talk about in the report about what is possible can only happen when Black leaders are centering and prioritizing equity, right? Like, and just because you're Black does not default to meaning that you're doing that. And I think that we were very intentional about interviewing Black leaders who do that. And I think Equity in the Center is one of the best organizations, resources out there that like provides the guidance for how to prioritize equity within an institution, because that has to come hand in hand here.
Whitney, thank you so much. And I would say that we also look to Service Never Sleeps for strong Black leadership, Black-led organization that's been doing the work for a long time. So really, really appreciate everything that you give to us, and just appreciate your partnership. I think one last thing that I'll say is, everyone, if you haven't gone to download the report, please download the report. Everybody, we've got a training October 30th from 12 to 4. I think that's what.
That's it.
12 to 4, October 30th, to dig even deeper into some of the key takeaways, to have some deeper conversation about what it means to be Black-led. And I think ultimately, one other thing that I think is critically important is, as we kind of think about the kind of arc of where all of this work has been going, from diversity a while ago to inclusion to equity to justice to liberation, we've got to move away from DEI. We've got to go beyond DEI. We've got to fund and support and center Black leaders and Black-led organizations for all of us to be liberated. And so I just really, really appreciate your time, Whitney. Appreciate everyone joining today. And I hope to see all of you in the training on October 30th.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and look forward to continuing to blow it up and shut it down where necessary, all in the process of building something beautiful for all of us to thrive. So thank you all so much today.
Appreciate you.